If you've been fasting, grinding through hunger, patting yourself on the back for discipline, and still watching your belly hang on like it got a personal vendetta against you, I need you to hear this because it's going to feel unfair at first. It's going to feel like you've been lied to because in a way you have. Not by fasting itself. Fasting is a powerful tool, but by the idea that fasting alone is the tool. Because the truth is, I've seen people fast like monks and still stay stuck. And the reason isn't that their body is broken. The reason is that their body is doing exactly what it's being told to do, just not by them. Here's what makes it so frustrating. You're doing the part that everyone says is the hard part. You're skipping meals. You're delaying gratification. You're pushing through that annoying morning hunger. You're watching the clock like it's a scoreboard, and then you step on the scale and nothing moves. Or worse, it moves for a week and then it freezes like your body decided that's enough progress for you. That's when people start blaming age, genetics, hormones, stress, willpower, metabolism, speed, thyroid, whatever they can reach for, because it's painful to consider the possibility that the strategy is right, but the signal is wrong. And that word signal is everything because your body doesn't respond to motivation. Your body responds to instructions. It responds to chemistry. It responds to the message your hormones are sending right now. And the hormone that decides whether you burn fat or protect fat, like it's a savings account during a recession, is insulin. That's the missing piece almost nobody wants to talk about because it's not sexy. And it doesn't sell the fantasy that you can just fast and the weight will fall off. So let's make this painfully clear because if you understand this, a lot of confusion disappears. Fasting is supposed to lower insulin. Lower insulin is supposed to unlock fat. Unlock fat is supposed to become fuel. That's the chain reaction. But if one link is weak, the whole thing breaks. And what most people don't realize is they can be fasting on the outside while their insulin stays just high enough on the inside to keep the vault door closed. That's when you get stuck in what I call the metabolic gray zone, where you're not really fed, but you're not really burning fat either. So you end up tired, cranky, and stalled, which is the worst combination because it makes you want to quit. And the gray zone is sneaky because it doesn't announce itself. It shows up as you doing a 16-hour fast and still waking up hungry like you didn't eat for a week. It shows up as you feeling light and sharp during the fast, then crashing the moment you eat, like someone pulled the plug on your brain. It shows up as you eating clean and still feeling like you could chew your arm off by mid-afternoon. You think you're lacking discipline, but it's not discipline. It's chemistry. It's the body asking for energy because it can't access the energy you already have stored. Now, here's where people get defensive because they hear insulin and they assume this is just another carb lecture, but that's not what this is. This is about timing, sensitivity, and the difference between a brief insulin rise that your body handles smoothly versus chronic repeated insulin spikes that keep you trapped in sugar burning mode all day. The weird part is you can be doing everything healthy and still be doing the exact pattern that keeps insulin elevated. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, but that's why so many people feel betrayed by their own effort, because the first trap is what happens at the end of the fast. People do the fast like it's a heroic event, and then they celebrate by breaking it with the exact foods that slam insulin up so fast, the body has no choice but to switch into storage mode again. They break it with oatmeal, fruit, smoothies, granola, healthy cereal, even a salad that's loaded with sweet dressings and dried fruit. It looks like wellness on a plate. So it feels safe, but inside your body, it can behave like flipping the fat-burning switch off in seconds. And what hurts is that you can literally feel it happen. You go from sharp to sleepy. You go from calm to hungry. You go from I'm in control to why do I want more food right now? So what's actually happening during a fast? Insulin goes down. And as insulin goes down, your body starts leaning into fat as a fuel source. And that's why fasting can feel clean. It's like your metabolism finally stops screaming and starts humming. But then you end the fast with a big carbohydrate hit and your pancreas responds like it's supposed to. It releases insulin to move glucose into cells. The problem is that insulin doesn't just move glucose. Insulin also tells fat cells, stop releasing fat. It literally closes the gate. And when that gate closes, the body shifts right back into glucose burning mode. And if that glucose arrives too fast, you get the spike, then the crash. And the crash feels like hunger because the brain hates unstable energy. And that's the moment people misinterpret. They think fasting made me hungrier. No. Breaking your fast the wrong way made you hungrier. Fasting opened the door. Then your first bite slammed it shut and kicked you back into the roller coaster. The roller coaster isn't fat loss. The roller coaster is hormonal whiplash. And the cruel part is the roller coaster trains your brain to dread fasting because your brain starts associating the end of the fast with a sugar rush and a crash, which makes cravings worse over time, not better. But there's a second trap, and it's almost the opposite, which is why it confuses people even more. Some people get stuck because they treat fasting like punishment. They fast long, and then they eat tiny, and then they fast long again, and they keep telling themselves the body will break eventually and give up the fat. But the body doesn't interpret that as fat loss. The body interprets that as shortage. And when the body senses shortage, it doesn't say, great, let's burn everything. It says we need to conserve. It slows the burn. It lowers the temperature. It makes you tired. It makes you cold. It makes you think about food. And it does that not because it hates you, but because it's designed to protect you. So the real goal of fasting was never starvation. The real goal of fasting is training your metabolism to use fat smoothly, training your hormones to calm down, training your hunger signals to stop behaving like alarms. And here's the twist that most people don't see coming. Training requires fuel. Not constant fuel, but the right fuel at the right time. Because if you want your metabolism to become flexible, if you want your body to switch from sugar to fat, without panic, you can't just remove food. You have to rebuild the system that uses food. This is why I keep coming back to insulin, because insulin isn't just a fat storage hormone in some dramatic villain narrative. Insulin is a gatekeeper. Insulin decides whether you're allowed to access stored energy. If insulin is high, the door is locked. If insulin is low, the door opens. And the tragedy is, most people almost never let insulin stay low long enough to become powerful. They snack, they sip flavored drinks, they add creamers, they grab just a handful, they eat late, they graze. None of it feels extreme, so it feels harmless. But the body doesn't tally your intentions. The body tallies your signals. And this is where people get shocked because it's not just candy and soda. It can be protein bars that look like fitness. It can be flavored yogurt that looks like health. It can be the diet drink you thought was a free pass. It can be the constant small hits that never allow insulin to truly fall. It's like trying to drain a bathtub while leaving the faucet dripping. You keep wondering why the water level never drops, but the drip is enough to keep it from emptying. So how do you actually flip the switch? You do something that sounds almost too simple to be real, which is why people ignore it at first. You stop treating fasting as the main event and start treating your insulin-lowering window as the main event. That means you don't just ask how long did I go without food, you ask how long was insulin actually low, because those are not always the same thing. And once you start measuring the right outcome, the next moves become obvious. One of the most powerful moves is what you break your fast with, because your first meal after fasting is like the first domino. Whatever you do, there sets the tone for the next hours. If you hit your system with fast digesting carbs, you spike insulin, you shut down fat release, and you spend the rest of the day trying to recover from your own breakfast. But if you break the fast with a meal that keeps insulin quiet, something almost eerie happens. You eat, but you don't crash. You feel fed, but you don't get ravenous. You get energy, but it's steady, like a slow burning candle instead of a fireworks show. That's why high protein, higher fat, lower carb foods are so effective after fasting. Not because carbs are evil, but because the goal right after fasting is not to slam the gate shut. The goal is to keep the door open while you bring in nutrients. Think of it like entering a clean, calm room. You don't want to throw a smoke bomb into it. You want to walk in quietly and keep that calm energy going. And this is where people misjudge fat. They've been trained to fear fat, but fat is the nutrient that has the gentlest impact on insulin. Protein does rise insulin somewhat, but it also triggers satiety and muscle repair, which becomes crucial later in this story. Carbs, especially refined carbs, can create the sharpest rise and the quickest crash. So if you want fat burning to continue after the fast ends, you don't start with the thing that shuts it down fastest. You start with the thing that supports stability. Now, I know what you're thinking because I can almost hear it. So you're telling me I can fast perfectly and still ruin it with one meal. And yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. But not to scare you, to free you. Because once you see it, you stop blaming yourself and you start controlling the real lever. You stop fighting hunger like it's a personality flaw, and you start building meals that prevent hunger from turning into a fire drill. But there's another layer most people miss, and it's the layer that makes this feel almost unfair once you realize it, because it means the same meal can produce different results depending on the time you eat it. That's because your body runs on a clock, and that clock controls insulin sensitivity. In the morning and early afternoon, your body is generally more insulin sensitive, meaning it handles food better. At night, insulin sensitivity drops, especially as darkness triggers melatonin, and your system shifts toward repair. That means eating late hits differently. It's not about morality, it's about timing. So, when people eat their last meal late and then wonder why fasting doesn't work, they're unknowingly setting themselves up. They sleep with insulin elevated, they block overnight fat burning, they wake up hungry. They break the fast early because they feel desperate. Then the entire day is spent in sugar burning mode because the system never got the overnight reset it needed. It's like trying to start a clean morning while leaving yesterday's mess all over the kitchen counter. And this is why simply moving your last meal earlier can create results that feel like magic, even when you change nothing else. Because when you finish eating a few hours before bed, insulin has time to drop. And when insulin drops, your body can actually use the night the way it was designed to use it. Night isn't just rest. Night is repair. Night is where growth hormone rises during deep sleep. Night is where your body does invisible work on your metabolism. But there's a catch that almost nobody tells you. Growth hormone and insulin do not like being high together. When insulin is high, growth hormone gets suppressed. So if you eat late and spike insulin, you're basically stealing from your body's overnight fat burning and muscle preserving repair crew. Now, add one more piece and it starts to feel like a cheat code. If you train your body while you're still in that low insulin fasted state, like a morning workout before your first meal, you push your system even deeper into fat utilization. Your body needs energy, and with insulin low, fat becomes the obvious fuel source. Then when you eat afterward, your muscles are primed to absorb nutrients. The same food that might have gone into storage goes into repair. The same calories that might have felt like a setback become an investment. And suddenly, fasting stops being skipping food. It becomes a structured rhythm that teaches your body to burn, rebuild, and stabilize. But right here is where most people crash. And it's such a boring reason that people almost hate hearing it because it doesn't feel like the answer they were looking for. It's electrolytes. Because when insulin drops during fasting, your kidneys release more sodium and water, which means you can feel tired, dizzy, foggy, or weak, and you think it's low blood sugar, or you think fasting is harming you when in reality, you're often just low on minerals. That fatigue isn't always lack of calories. Sometimes it's the body losing salt and water faster than you're replacing it. And the fix can be as simple as salt and hydration. And this matters more than people realize because if you feel terrible during your fast, you'll break it impulsively, you'll panic eat, you'll reach for quick carbs because your brain wants instant relief. And that relief becomes the very insulin spike that locks fat away again. So something as small as managing electrolytes can be the difference between fasting feeling effortless and fasting feeling like a battle you keep losing. Now, here's the part that people either love or they resist hard because it forces a decision. If fasting is a tool to lower insulin and lowering insulin is what unlocks fat, then your eating window has to protect that advantage, not destroy it. That's why ultra-processed foods, seed oils, refined carbs, sugary sauces, constant snack foods, all of that works against the exact metabolic reset you're trying to create. It inflames the gut, burdens the liver, keeps insulin bouncing, and it turns fasting into a daily tug-off wear. But when you switch the fuel, when you break your fast with nutrient-dense food that keeps insulin stable, something starts changing that's bigger than the scale. You stop feeling controlled by hunger. You stop thinking about food every hour. You stop needing snacks just to feel normal. And the first time that happens, it's almost emotional because you realize you weren't weak. You were locked out of your own stored energy. You were standing next to a full tank with a cap you couldn't open. So here's the open loop I want you holding in your mind because it's about to matter more than anything else. If insulin is the gatekeeper and timing sets the stage, and food choice decides whether the gate stays open, then what is the one additional lever you can pull that makes fasting finally feel like it clicks for people who have been stuck for months? Because there is one simple add-on that turns fasting from a struggle into a system. And it's not a supplement, and it's not a miracle drink, and it's not fast longer. It's a strategic move that tells your body unmistakably that it's safe to burn fat and unnecessary to conserve it. And the reason most people never use it is because they think they're already doing it, but they're doing it wrong. That one simple add-on isn't a new fasting schedule, and it isn't a magic food either, because the mistake everyone makes is they keep looking for the next thing to remove. Remove breakfast, remove carbs, remove calories, remove snacks, remove joy. But real fat burning doesn't turn on when you remove more. It turns on when your body finally feels safe enough to stop defending itself. And the fastest way to create that safety signal while keeping insulin low is this: you add resistance, not restriction. Because a muscle signal changes the entire hormonal conversation. Here's why this is so powerful. When you fast without sending a strength signal, your body can interpret the gap as shortage, especially if you've already been dieting hard or under-eating for weeks. So it starts conserving. But when you fast and you add a brief resistance-based stimulus, even a short session, your body receives a different message. It hears, we're still capable, we're still strong, we still need performance. So instead of downshifting your metabolism, it protects muscle, increases fuel demand, and pulls energy from stored fat to meet that demand. That's the real shift. You stop not eating, and you start training your body to use what it already has. And this is where most people get it wrong, because they hear exercise and immediately picture an hour at the gym, sweating, suffering, doing cardio until their knees hate them, then rewarding themselves with a carb bomb because they earned it. That whole pattern is a trap. The goal here isn't exhaustion. The goal is a signal that tells your muscles to open the doors and pull fuel in without requiring a massive insulin surge. Because muscles can absorb glucose in a way that's less insulin dependent when they've been worked. That means the same meal after that signal can behave completely differently inside your body. Instead of refilling fat storage, it refuels the tissue that keeps your metabolism alive. So what does the add-on actually look like? It looks like a short, consistent resistance routine placed strategically inside your fasted window, ideally near the end of the fast right before you eat. That timing matters because it stacks the benefits. You've already lowered insulin. You've already opened the fat gate. Then you trigger muscle demand. Now your body has to supply energy. And with insulin low, it leans into fat oxidation hard. Then when you eat, your muscles act like sponges, not your fat cells. The exact same calories that used to betray you suddenly start working for you. And that's the moment people feel like, wait, this is what it was supposed to feel like. This is also why people who only fast but never challenge muscle often plateau. Because muscle is the engine that burns fuel even at rest. Lose the engine and you can fast forever and still feel cold, tired, and stuck, but preserve and build that engine, and the entire metabolism stays louder, cleaner, and easier to steer. That's the irony. The people who are most desperate to lose fat often do the one thing that makes fat loss harder long term. They diet in a way that sacrifices muscle. Then they wonder why the body slows down. It didn't betray them, it adapted. Now, I want you to imagine how this plays out in real life, because the science only matters if it becomes a routine you can actually live with. You wake up, you hydrate, you get salt in, you don't drip insulin all morning with flavored drinks or tiny snacks, you let your body stay calm. Then near the end of your fasting window, you do 8 to 15 minutes of resistance movement. It could be simple squats to a chair, wall push-ups, slow lunges, holding onto a countertop, light dumbbells, resistance bands, even just controlled body weight movements. The point isn't the equipment, the point is the signal. Then you break your fast with a protein and fat-first meal that keeps insulin steady, like eggs, meat, fish, or whatever fits your plan, and you don't flood your system with sugar that slams the gate shut. And when you do it this way, something subtle happens at first. You notice you don't crash after eating. You notice you don't get ravenous, 2 hours later, you notice fasting stops feeling like white-knuckle discipline and starts feeling like quiet control. That's the body finally accessing its own stored energy without panic. That's metabolic flexibility showing up in real time. But here's the part almost nobody expects. When you add this resistance signal, your body becomes more forgiving. Not infinitely forgiving, but noticeably, because you're improving insulin sensitivity where it matters most. You're building a bigger storage tank in muscle, so glucose has somewhere to go besides fat. You're increasing mitochondrial demand, so fat has a reason to be burned. You're telling the body, we're not shrinking, we're rebuilding. And that one psychological shift inside your biology changes everything. And this is where the so-called fasting isn't enough problem finally makes sense. People were treating fasting like the main strategy. But fasting is only a lever to lower insulin. If you lower insulin but keep living in a sedentary, undermuscled, stressed-out state, your body still has reasons to conserve. But if you lower insulin and add the right muscle signal, you remove the body's fear. You remove its need to store. You remove the reason it was clinging to fat in the first place. Now, I need to warn you about the one mistake that will sabotage this, even if you do everything else right because it's sneaky and it feels healthy. The mistake is breaking your fast like you're trying to prove you're not on a diet. You take the fasted workout, you feel proud, and then you celebrate with a clean carb heavy meal. Oats, smoothie, fruit bowl, whole grain toast. And yes, some of those foods can be fine for some people, but right after fasting, they can spike insulin hard enough to erase the advantage you just created. You go right back to the roller coaster and you start thinking the routine failed when really the first bite just cut the rope. So the closing principle is this: fasting opens the door. Resistance tells your body to walk through it. Food choice decides whether the door stays open. Timing decides whether the whole system feels smooth or chaotic. And electrolytes decide whether you can actually stick with it long enough to let the adaptation happen. If you want a simple way to apply this starting tomorrow, stop chasing longer fasts like they're trophies. Pick a fasting window you can repeat, protect it from hidden insulin drips, add a short resistance signal near the end, break the fast with protein and fat first, finish eating a few hours before bed so the overnight fat burning shift can happen, then repeat that rhythm long enough for your body to stop arguing with you. Because the real transformation isn't the first week where the scale drops and you get excited. The real transformation is the week you realize you forgot to think about food for half the day. The week you notice your energy is steady without snacks. The week you sleep deeper because you stopped eating late.